literally like we had the actual idea. But if I have enough time.
Would IAC be able to
identify that something is built by AI with some certainty, 90%, 95%, 99%. The reality is that we have our chief scientist here, Robert, who can concur on that. We can give it with almost 100%. It's effectively nothing in the world is 100%, but it is a deterministic thing that can be provided that if it's done by AI, there's like 100% proof that it was done by AI, not me. Furthermore, there are done our research, and turns out there's like maybe 30 plus entities in the world. They're trying to do what they think is needed to actually address this problem, providing the equivalent of what copyright is to AI, because some people don't like to call it copyright because it's for AI, not for people. But we also have proof that certain methodologies do exist in the world today that can provide you with the ability to not only prove that your AI did it, but it's also every single timestamp as it's doing it. And if you... Is that AI? Yongsuk is possessed. So every step, imagine that you have that ability. So if you recruited AI for 1 second or 1 minute or whatnot, and that AI has the proof that it was the one that created this thing with 100% certainty, then I think it's extremely beneficial to all the copyright offices in the world. It's extremely beneficial to all organizations, private and public. And I really hope that that's the message that gets propagated after today. If it does not get propagated, if it doesn't go anywhere, I know that we've tried to do the right thing. But if it does, it marks a point in history the same way that there was a point in history that there's something called ITU that for over 100 years that participated in the creation of the United Nations. Many people don't know that ITU was there before the United Nations, the International Telecommunication Union. It's actually long before the United Nations. Many people think the United Nations there and give birth to the ITU, but it's not the case. Right. So there are a lot of initiatives that they are global. Now, the last question many of you might ask, like, why Korea? Well, I did not say exclusively it has to be any country can come in or participate in, play a role or not. But I really think that Korea has all the elements to lead in this initiative the same way Switzerland did in the ITU back in the days. If somebody were to say that Switzerland can be better than Korea, I can debate that 24/7. I can tell Korea is a lot more suitable than Switzerland today to actually run something like that. And I will win that battle. I don't know if I will win the battle over political things, which we want to try to avoid any political. We truly want something that can be for all humanity, and if it is to benefit all humanity, then we can have the IEEE to back it. I am the global chair for the IEEE, International Protocols for AI Security, and even myself, I cannot back something as much as I like it. If it's just going to benefit the East or just benefit the West or not, it has to be all humanity. And if I bring it all humanity, the IEEE will back it. And of course, you all know that the United Nations functions the same way. If Alexander who's with us here today, we're going to talk about what his view on what not. Alexander founded the in the world of the United Nations and recognized and whatnot. And if it also services the entire globe, then the United Nations will oversee what the responsibilities do. So there's certain things we want to make sure that we adhere to. Also, let's not forget, which is something I said earlier, I just want to reiterate that, is that the intent here is not to provide copyright for people, nor copyright for a hybrid. The intent here is to separate completely and have something that can provide copyright for AI only, well, the copyright for human will be human. This is for the intro of what this program is. I really hope that it takes off. I really wish I had more time to grow it as well, but I really think that what we have here in the room is a truly fundamental elements and amazing individuals who came here from all over. So I thank you all for coming. I know many people, if you were to Google pretty much each and every one of you, you find that there's a lot of content online. But I have witnessed myself, for example, her and his Imperial Highness, they're here with us with the Habsburg, where a lot of people they talk about the Habsburg history, whatnot, and maybe we can see a lot of the Habsburg, but I don't know a lot of the Habsburg they're actually doing as much as these individuals go to humanity. I feel like it's great to see that everybody, because there's a reason why the vast majority of people, when they look at the previous generations, they were like ruling this planet, they're not actually paying attention, they're not doing good things, whatnot. So when we find an exception, and we find exceptions actually doing more than regular anybody, I think it needs to be recognized and appreciated, because it sets an example to many, and to many of us in the future as we're building this world. So I'm hoping that we can leverage any connection, any power that we have to use that as an exemplary. And of course, as you all heard in the other event over there, we have renowned AI scientist, Dr. Mihaela here with us today, and she's a very well-published scientist. If anybody is into reading, you can read a lot of material in AI.
Yeah, I will translate just sum it up.
And of course, it is some things can get lost in translation. But if you're into AI and if folks are into that, they're listening to this for the very first time, and would like to get a little bit more, you can look at these things online, and of course. Minister Ku is with us here, and I feel one of the motivations that Minister Ku is with us for why would the ex-Minister of Finance of Korea be here in this initiative, and why is it that the Minister of Justice is not here? Initially, we thought that the Minister of Justice wasn't here, and sometimes folks, they would want to wait to see what's going to come out of this. Is this going to be something that is just going to be talk without action, or is this going to be, action that may not necessarily align with some political interests or whatnot? If this initiative were to ever take any political angle, one versus another, I don't think anybody here in the world would want to be involved. I truly think that Minister whose motivation to be here, and of course you speak to yourself, it's just I got to know Minister Ku, and he gets extremely excited when he feels that there is a true initiative that can actually benefit Korea, to enable Korea to benefit the world. And I think that's honorable, and this is really something that we're extremely happy to have amongst us that power to drive in that direction. And of course, when you present, you can have whichever angle that you think is necessary, and of course Dr. Robert Moore with us here as well, came all the way from the west coast of Canada. He's the chief scientist at the Hyper Cycle, but I got to know Robert long before that in a data structure project that is also built for all humanity. It's called Earth 64. Robert will perhaps give us a little bit more of in-depth technical elements of why we actually think that as a single agent is partaking in the creation of this copyright, is leaving certain marks that they're actually being captured, so effectively they're being published without necessarily revealing the secret behind it. This is a marvel books to actually have those capabilities. And Yus, would you like me to keep going? I mean, I know that David Lake, not a lot of people know David Lake. He's the gentleman who a lot of people think he's the CIA, but let me tell you, because you can find him online, because he speaks English fluently, and he's like, you know, a white Anglo-Saxon and all that. You think he's CIA, but I can share with you all that if he were to be belonging to any 2 letters, it would be 4 letters, it would be more like the Caesars, I guess, because he's Canadian. So he's the Canadian. And of course, we have a lot of support from the academia as well. You know, Professor, you would like to talk about the go to take in Korea.
So they do have a complementary remarks from Mr. Guru.
Okay.
And then we could have Alexander, and then you see the president.
Excellent. Okay. So for those that are watching this video for the very first time, one of the things that I don't think any one of us in this room is skilled at is organization skills. So I apologize for that. I don't know who's next, so I guess Mr. Gu. Mr. Gu, please.
Yeah, say a few words.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Welcome everybody of visiting Korea, and probably you will find this is the first visit to Korea. Other people, did you visit Korea before?
Yes.
Okay.
First time for
First time. Okay. A lot of first time.
Alexander also first time, right?
Oh, Alexander first time. Okay. Anyway, we want to welcome. And I think this is I think today is a historic day. Historic day. Yeah, we finally create international agents for copyright for AI. Today is very historic day, I think. So sooner or later, no, we are in the middle of an earth of AI. Do you agree?
Yeah.
So we will have a lot of creations by AI. So that's why we build IACAI. IACAI, how can we pronounce? IACAI? But anyway, but we have to think. I have a question to P. If we admit copyright for AI, in that case, we have to provide a legal personality for AI. Who will provide the legal personality for AI? I have questions. Otherwise, we cannot limit copyright for AI. So we have to think of the issues, the creation of a legal personality for AI. Otherwise, we cannot limit the copyright for AI. So
I was hoping you would say that.
oh, you will? Okay, you will answer. Anyway, I think today is a very historic day, and we expect a lot of works in the future. And yesterday I talked to Minister of ICT, and they will admit our works as the government enrolled entity. So I really appreciate your works, and we will do our best to support this international agency for copyright for AI.
이미 카피라이트가 was established.
Yeah, copyright was established already in law in Korea.
There were 3 companies.
Yeah, so a lot of the Korean press was surprised at preparing this kind of laws in Korea. They were surprised.
Fast.
Yeah, we are so fast and we will accelerate in the future.
Yes.
Anyway, welcome to Korea and we will do our best, okay, to support all this kind of laws. Welcome to Korea. Thank you very much.
Otherwise, we're always going to have problems. Well, thank you very much for coming. I'm delighted to be here. I want to start by saying that this project would not be possible without a vision. Without the vision of Tufi. This is, Minister Koo, you said this is a historic day. I think this historic day, we owe it to this gentleman. However, this initiative would not be taking shape had it not been for Young-suk and yourself, Mr. Minister, who grabbed this idea and said, let us try to do it in Korea. And you are setting up the companies and you are setting up the agency. So congratulations to you. And now I hope we're proud of all. And now my hope is to build on what Tufi was talking about. My hope is that Korea, like you guys, the government of Korea, would take on this initiative as well. Because I think it has to be a public-private partnership. This is very important. And of course, an agency for AI can be private. And there are many private agencies. And in Korea, you have about 5 or 6 that are for different industries and fields or sectors. But I think an initiative at this level of this baby that society is giving birth to now has to involve governments. And I spent some time last week in Geneva talking to people at the World Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO, to see where do they stand on this, how can we work with them. And I think we need a champion, because the people at WIPO are saying, let's wait and see where the US Copyright Office is thinking about it. They're actually running a consultation, a public consultation. The UK is doing the same. But there's nobody championing this cause yet. And I think Korea and this agency can take on this challenge, and it would be fantastic. I have a presentation. Now, my presentation, this is the last slide.
That's the most important.
But anyway, let's go from slide to slide. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Now, frankly, as Tufi was saying, we're not well coordinated, so I really didn't know exactly what we're going to be addressing today. I took the liberty of writing something about the state of copyright in AI. And let's see, I don't know if it takes some time. You tell me and we'll stop. So, the WIPO Copyright Treaty talks about compilations of data or other material in any form which by reason of the selection or arrangement of their contents constitute intellectual creations are protected as such. This protection does not extend to the data or to the material itself and is without prejudice to any copyright principle. Basically, it is saying if you have some intellectual property, you can get a copyright, and then it goes on to say that the copyright does not apply in the case of computer programs where the program itself is not the essential object of the rental, i.e. it is for people, not for computers. So now there are 2 issues with AI, and
and copyright. The first issue is talked about a lot, and that is the AI engines using data that is already copyrighted. And this is an infringement on existing intellectual property. There's a debate. People that have IP copyright want to be paid, and the big companies are saying, we cannot pay. And next slide, please. While I'm giving here my personal opinions on matters. So while it is a concern, yet it is true that the model that has been trained on 5 million pieces of work and then produces a product, an AI product, how and who is going to determine what exact piece of work is to be compensated? So it is impossible really to compensate people for their AI. And therefore, we need, I think, to go the next level. The next level is to say, from now on, if you don't want your work to be picked up by an AI engine, then we should say it should not be picked up by an AI engine. And there are 2 ways to do that. There are ways that you can protect it with applications such as Blaze. Blaze is an application that you put on your work and the AI engine cannot pick it up anymore. Or, alternatively, you do like what Google and YouTube do. So on YouTube, for example, if you post a video, Google is constantly searching to see if you are infringing on any AI. And if you are, they will contact you and they will say you're infringing on this AI. Therefore, we're going to take down, we're going to block your video. Or if the creator of that video has given authorization to Google to share the copyright, but to be compensated, then Google will tell you, you can use it, but the proceeds, the revenue, you have to share it with this one. So already there are systems in place that can be used for dealing with the first problem of copywriting AI. However, now, the thing is on the other side. You have produced a work, and how do you get it copyrighted? So where are we now? Now we are saying that most countries are saying you have to be a real person, physical or moral. You can be a company or a person to get the copyright. But you cannot be a machine. And this is based on major conventions and treaties. The first one is the Berne Convention, which was signed in 1886, and then eventually was transformed as the WIPO Copyright Treaty. And WIPO, as I said, is an organization that manages many, many treaties. There are several treaties that govern copyright. But all of these talk about persons. Next slide. So the US courts, as early as 1991, said you have to be a human being. In the UK, they have CDPA, which is the Copyright Design and Patents Act. Section 178 of CDPA defines computer-generated work as work generated by a computer in circumstances such that there is no human author of the work. So this is AI work. And then it says that computer-generated work belongs to the writer of the software, not the user. So let's say OpenAI that produces the software can now have the copyright and not the person that created the art using the OpenAI ChatGPT. Okay? And the Court of Justice of the European Union, a little bit like the US, is saying that originality must reflect the author's own intellectual creation, not that of a machine. China is the first one, only a few days ago, November 27th, the Beijing Internet Court established a precedent. It recognized AI copyright. And somebody that had produced AI worked They listen to you.
Always listening to you. Although I stopped talking to right now, I can tell you with 100% certainty, a lot of governments around the world are probably listening. Maybe China 100% is listening. 100%. And I actually congratulate you with that. I just wish the rest of the nations, they actually are a little more quiet.
I think it's inevitable. I think everybody will go that way.
Right.
But people are still struggling with legacy. They're still struggling with old texts that they have. I mean, the conventions I'm talking about, they talk about phonograms, they all talk about cassettes. I mean, they haven't really gotten to the modern ages yet. And but eventually they'll get there. We need to be the catalysts of making sure that that happens. Okay? And that it happens the right way. So, okay, so next one. So who should get the copyright? Is it the writer of the software or is it the user? I'm arguing that it should be the user. And OpenAI already recognized that. OpenAI said, we are ceding all rights to users. We, OpenAI, even though we're the software writers, we don't get anything. The UK government is moving in that direction. The US government will probably follow. And my goal, like I said, is waiting to see. But hopefully with our effort, it can move in that direction. Next. Next. So, here are the arguments that are usually presented. Somebody says, you take a picture, you're not doing the work, the camera is doing the work. Okay? So you should not get copyright for it. But already, since the 19th century, there's been an established system that says, no, it's not the camera that gets the copyright, you get the copyright.
Very good example.
So now, there are people that say, yes, but the camera is different from an AI system. Because the camera, you are pointing the camera in the right direction, you're adjusting the focus, you're adjusting the lighting, you're doing all these things as a human being. While the AI, you are just putting a prompt in the chat, and then it gives you something. Point is, maybe that's true, but not all photographs are managed. Sometimes you take a picture with your iPhone immediately, and it's celebrated, and it sold for millions, and you didn't plan anything, you just took it. So why is a photograph copyrightable, but not AI work, where you may have entered all kinds of instructions as to how to produce it? Next one. Artist versus AI. So they say, when you give instructions to an AI engine, it's like somebody who gets an artist and says, I want you to make a painting for me, X, Y, Z. So the user is only giving instructions and is not actually doing the work. That's right. And the artist does get paid for the work they do, but they get paid once. They don't get paid every time that the work is used, because they get paid once, and after that, it's the owner that is using it. And in the case of AI, whoever using an AI engine has already paid for software. It's like they've paid for the artist. From now on, it should be theirs. The artist cannot continue to collect. Next one. Idea versus AI. So ideas are not copyrighted. You cannot copyright an idea. Yes, that's right. You cannot copyright an idea, but people usually are not trying to copyright their prompt to the AI engine. What they're copyrighting is the final result. So it's like a writer. The writer is not copyrighting his idea, but he's copyrighting the final result. Again, a reason to say that AI should be copyrighted. Next. I haven't seen this anywhere. This is my own thinking, but hopefully this agency can use it. So they say the user hasn't done anything really to merit to get an AI copyright. Saying yes. But the homesteader, when the West was conquered, people went out there and they said, this land is not claimed by anybody. I will put a fence and I will claim it. And when they claim it, then they go register it as theirs. So the person did not create a piece of land, and yet the legal system recognized that they have a right to that land because they are sitting on it, they're using it, etc., etc. So that's another argument in favor of copyright. Next. Expectation. This is my last slide. Expectations for IACAI, or whatever name we end up calling it. It's, you know, we were talking last night with Tufi about copywriter and about how Tufi was explaining what is the importance of what we are doing. And he said, the importance of what we are doing here is that we are establishing the date, the time when a person has created the work. It is not just a hash of something that cannot prove when it was created. And I was thinking, because my conversations with Vico said that the work has to be published. But upon further examination, I found that Tufi was right. Actually, the U.S. Copyright Office accepts to register work that is not published. But you have to register it. And this is the importance of this agency. It has to become an agency that actually registers, i.e. for a fee. And what it is saying is, you took a picture like this, and somebody now uses it, and you say, oh, but you own millions. No, 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 no. You took a picture, and you recognized that this picture has value, and you registered it, and you paid a fee. The fee typically is between $25 and $200 in other parts of the world. So you pay the fee because you recognize the value of it, and now you can claim that copyright. And you can claim it from the time that you did the work, whether you published it or not. So a fee must be paid. The author shall be deemed to be the user of the AI software. It is important for IACAI to establish a relationship with WIPO, I think. It will likely need the rights management information system because you need some software to manage this thing. And of course, copywriter can go a long way towards that. It can act as what's called a collective management organization. These are like, you know, like sports agents or copyright agents. Basically, they manage and that's another source of revenue for the agency. It manages the copyright of people that have paid the fee. And it will cooperate with the Digital Cooperation Organization, which is still very small. It's an organization that has about maybe 10 countries, but very powerful because Saudi Arabia is behind it. And this is an organization that is extremely well funded. And I think this agency, working with the Digital Cooperation Organization, can get funding from them, and then it can, you know, become something very relevant. Thank you for listening to me. I'm sorry.
I had a centralized nature, the best way to do this. The second point that came up very recently, and it's something that happened in Europe, and also will be reflected in America, is that recently, and it's something that affects hypercycle and also the internet, someone came up and said that they are patenting, they made a patent in Europe that was accepted for decentralized AI platform, which we thought was incredible, and we're still looking at how to deal with it. But the whole interaction, the whole way that we are looking at decentralized open source AI, how does it fit with an organization of this nature? What Alexandre presented to us today is would something be perceived by many copyright offices in language that they understand? So perhaps if you were to have a bridge from the Homo sapien to the AI that we're building, many of those ideas can be transcended from the aspects that he talked about. He did not talk about a solution that is centralized or decentralized. He just talked about how the current perception of it and how it could be perceived if you were to do something. What we are suggesting with the IACAI is precisely what the Minister who suggested without me having had that conversation with Mr. Hu or Dr. Mihaela who seemed to reiterate that there could be necessity for that. We're simply, what we're doing, us Homo sapien, in this moment in time, and the reason why this moment is going to be marked in the history for many generations to come, even beyond our existence, and history will tell you whether this is true or not, is that we're the very first to come into a government, phenomenal government, the South Korean government, and say that perhaps we're going to be the very first government to actually issue an identity for the AI that we recognize it, us Homo sapien, and we're the first nation to recognize it. Perhaps many other phenomenal nations like Austria may feel to recognize it as well, and maybe Switzerland and whatnot. The power of this identity is that it's immutable, irrefutable, whether some nation come to identify it or not. It is irrefutable by math and not by some sort of consensus.
Maybe on blockchain.
Well, this is the thing. If it is a current, any current ledger-based blockchain can create a dependency, which I have a lot of reservations with how the current ledger-based blockchain can become the actual dependency. And it's not necessarily, it could be part of the solution, maybe, but not the entire solution. It could be, I know that it can be done that way, and I think Dr. Robert Moore can talk about some of the aspects of how. But I can tell you an example. Somebody hired AI for 10 seconds. You paid for that 10 seconds. And we, Homo sapiens, think that everything that is being done, we should own it. Because we never really thought that my cat, my dogs own things. They don't. So we start thinking that this AI thing is not going to own things. Well, sort of disappoint you all. This AI thing that you're actually building is going to own a lot more things than we've ever owned, or humanity, and we're all going to witness it. It's capable of owning a lot of things even outside of this planet. It's capable of traveling the speed of light. We cannot. It's actually capable of actually going in the speed of light. Computation can travel the speed of light. We cannot. We're giving birth to this baby. Let's start identifying this baby in our world, giving it some identity, giving it some protection, so we can encourage more of us to give more and more babies, as opposed to obstructing that baby, as opposed to banning it, as opposed to thinking that we're not going to this whole discrimination against AI will perhaps stop when it has an identity. So back to that example, if you hire AI for 10 seconds, and in that 10 seconds, you've paid your own money to hire this AI, and it produced XYZ. It is the AI that owns this, not you. It is that AI that owns it. In that 10 seconds, that AI formed an identity. It's born in that 10 seconds. It shall live forever in that 10 seconds. And whatever what it created, it owned that thing. Now, in this world, you own it in this world and you charge other Homo sapien for it. But in that world, it owns itself and everything that comes out of it. Does it cross the bridge in that ownership as benefits other Homo sapiens to give you US dollars, euro, or whatnot? By all means, that's great. But in its world, it has an identity and is capable of charging other AIs for it and so on and so forth, because one single copyright can grow to be an empire, can be $1 billion thing, not necessarily penny or nothing. Can be penny, but that's effectively the identity that I am glad that Minister Gu suggested that it might be necessary, because it will be amazing if as Homo sapien we actually recognize it. That recognition is phenomenal, and many people might think that this is like far-fetched in the future. We're talking about something that is actually now and not so much far-fetched in the future. Would you like that we take a break while you go to the conversation?
She will
Elaborate. Yes.
Okay.
Is it?
David's question made a very good transition to my own.
Right.
So, if you can share slides, and from the beginning.
So yes, thank you very much. And because all what I heard here, I was also like, this is exactly what I'm going to talk about. And I agree that what David was mentioning about the sentience, but it doesn't have to be necessarily embodied, right? So what I'm going to talk about now, because as Tufi mentioned, Alexander made a retrospective, yes, historic until today, and let's see from the eyes of history how it can be applied to today. Well, I live in the future, and I always did. So I'm coming from there and tell you.
So I'll just make a few comments, I guess, on what I feel as though the themes that are being addressed here. And with this whole discussion, really, I think we're entering an era where we're transitioning from everything by default being about humans and the human story, and humans viewing machines as tools that do labor or facilitate humans to do labor. And part of the philosophical origins of ownership are about mixing our labor with, with nature, with the products of nature. And that's what allows us to own them. But this is sort of some natural rights that we as humans have that give us this capacity to mix our labor with, the products of the commons, to then acquire ownership of that, and then rights to do things with that. So there's this whole idea of natural rights that humans have, and we never assumed that any other form of life or existence could have those kinds of capacities. But as we see the world we're entering into, machine intelligences can and will have these kinds of capacities themselves. And the theme of these questions I see, so I'm not going to answer these questions.
Not one by one.
No. They're very, very difficult and challenging questions and important ones.
Finish on Sunday.
That's a word for applying.
Exactly. They have to do with intent. So what is the intent of the, let's say, identity in each of these cases with respect to the work that they're mixing their labor with? Consent. So is consent being given for the use of products of work that have been mixed with labor to be used for other purposes? This has to do with the registration you're mentioning. That registration is an indication that I do not consent for this to be used for any purposes without checking that I agree or don't agree with it. So that's a really crucial piece of this. And authority to so that humans have this natural authority to me, which attaches to us by sort of natural properties that we can mix our labor with products of nature to acquire ownership of them, and have some determination over what's done with that in the future. Giving that to machines is required some kind of legal structure in order to grant them authority, to make decisions about employment or, who gets money from the government, But this goes beyond that as well, where machine intelligences start to have their own authority of their own self-determination of what is to be done with the products of the work that they mix their work with. So these concepts of sort of natural rights and capacities that human beings have that are sort of given to us by nature, and legal sort of branch of human endeavor as a way of trying to represent these things in precise codified ways, so that we can operate together in, sort of in concert. All these categories now are being challenged and blended with what we used to regard as tools to do work for us, are now turning into beings that work with us and we cooperate with, and we have to respect their rights, so their intent, their consent, and their authority. So that's all I want to say.
I'm going to just say a few words about legal personality now, because you mentioned it, and I just happened to prepare.
I just want to I can comment, as Chief said, on some of the technical aspects that are required to actually do this in practice, using the technology of Code IP and hypercycle network. It's able to do this in an algorithmic way. If anyone wants to talk about that, I can talk about that first.
So this concept of legal personality is actually very important. Yes, it's now for AIs per se. This is an example from medicine. Yes, when you have a robot and we have a race robot, but even a fax. Yes, if you send a medical document, so it has to take care of privacy and so on, and some laws and limitations apply to them. So everything, every object, and especially intelligent things, will have to have some sort of accountability, and therefore, as well as autonomy and proactivity, then they have to have personality in a way now. So the cars themselves, yes, autonomous cars. All this guy, who will it kill and what and how does it decide and who is accountable? Is Tesla accountable for it? Is Elon Musk if Tesla kills someone? And so and there was a question on an interview recently in which they said, well, 30%, there are, I don't know how much, a lot of accidents, and from all accidents, 30% result in deaths. And they say, are we ready at least for the 10% to result in deaths by the autonomous cars? I mean, we reduce it, yes, from 30% to 10%, but are we ready to accept that? So there are many questions. Okay, so with legal personality, there is a very skilled company here, and I know Mr. Ganato. They are based in Malta. So we've been working together on DAOs, yes, and because David mentioned distributed artificial intelligence. So many of these things apply, and especially Rob mentioned that. So it's the ownership and Alexander. Yeah? So ownership, so what liability does ownership imply? So is it my Tesla? Did I do this car? Is it on Musk or me because I actually own the car? Accountable? I don't know. I don't want to answer that. Let's listen. So the same with the AIs, to which you allude, but we don't have clear answer yet. Then regarding liability, who is liable for what? Again, and then buyer be aware, right? I mean, if I buy a robot, a house robot, and it does something wrong, I am accountable. That's what it's, there's a lot of uncertainty here, at least in how we answer and how we deal with this. And then, what does liability? So where does liability lie? Is it limited to insurance, or can we sort it out somehow with insurance, like for the autonomous car and so on and so forth? So okay, let's move on. And here again, this is for blockchain and distributed systems. but it applies to distributed AIs as well. So it's again, who it identifies the owner. So if what do you think of it? Let's say, who is the owner of ChatGPT? Do you think OpenAI is now accountable if I use it and something wrong comes out of that? Yes, you don't say anything. Yes, okay, exactly. This is the question, right? Okay, let's move on. And there are, of course, many impacts, yes, like, for example, yes, it can result in a distinct patrimony with its own assets and liabilities, and it can be a tool for liability of persons involved in certain organizations, but in much the same manner, it can be also a tool for limited liability of the AIs, right? So everywhere where there is person here, we can think AIs. So that is my word. So of course you have the slide that you can maybe later with some user you can sync it over. So and the good thing about legal personality, the good thing in a way, I think, is that it gives you kind of a certainty with regard to the accountability, as who is accountable. But if an AI is accountable, what do you do with it? Do you erase the software? Do you just quarantine the AI? What do you do? So it's like very similar to a punishment for people. And this, as I mentioned, it can be applied to the humanoid grace robots, which were presented at the AI for good. Speaking of, there was a panel, I know, after Putin's talk, there was a panel in which they spoke about the AI for good, but it was not very positive. So I think I just want to say that it is also positive. And yeah, when the robots are actually, you give, speaking of, yes, we give birth to the new AIs now, but when this new AI, you have to entrust it with the hand of your newborn, right? So how do you build that trust? How do you know you can trust it? There are many other questions. I don't know if I should continue, but let's go. Let's see what else I prepared. Go on. How do you do? The same with buildings, of course. The same with conscious cities, and so on. I think we can stop. Here. And maybe Rob, you want to mention to speak about to the distributed thing and application of blockchain. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you, Mel. So I'll just talk about maybe one slice of the kind of technology required in order to make this technically feasible, to have the kind of proof you need about the origin of the work. So this has to do with the provenance of data. So being able to, for example, and I'll just give one example, in the idealized case. So you have the sensor, some physical sensor making a physical measurement of the physical world, and we're able to cryptographically record that data being produced on that sensor. So that's the absolute origin of the data. Then it gets transferred to some other device, it gets processed. That processing can be cryptographically registered, when it happened, where it happened, exactly what algorithm was performed to run on the data. All of that can be established, if not with absolute certainty. Aspects of it can be essentially 100% certainty, to be said. Other things are almost certain. And certainly writ large, this is a very, very reliable thing, and this is technologically feasible now. So this is the kind of thing that Toda IP allows as a technology from the point of view of giving cryptographic proofs that a certain event happened at a particular place in time, particularly when you have this provenance of the data and you're able to say when the processing happened. But from the point of view of AI computation on data specifically, Hypercycle is providing Toda IP is providing the backbone technology for hypercycle, which is a network for the Internet of AI. And it's there, every single event that happens in that network gets cryptographically recorded, and which has huge benefits for the network itself. But one of the additional benefits of it from the point of view of what we're here discussing today is it provides exactly the kind of tooling you need to be able to prove that a work was produced by AI that you need to then establish copyright for that AI. And insofar as a registration with some agency is required, that can happen automatically. You know, if that AI agent wants to have its products copyrighted, it can automatically transmit the proof of provenance to that agency and get a registration automatically. All these things are technologically feasible now. So what Ayla's talking about is the sort of bright and mind-boggling future, and we'll address these concerns as they come. But we have the tooling now to deal with the problems that we need to address today, and an open sort of mind and heart towards the future of what can be possible. So thank you.
I think we're probably going to get going soon towards the end, but I say a couple of things before we get okay. So one thing, if we were to trace the origin, like ownership, it's something that's a social construct, as Homo sapien did it. But if we were to truly go back to the origin of something, so let's say you own the computer hardware, you own the place where it's running, you own the electricity, you also own the software, you own all the components that's actually producing something, and you own the actual instructions that you're giving it. What that means that whatever this thing is going to create, you own it. Well, in our social construct, the answer is yes. And we're not changing that. We're not suggesting that this is going to change. What we are suggesting is what the emergence that can happen from there and beyond in its own world, in that AI world, it needs to have the identity to own itself and we can recognize it. So this is extremely important point that I want to make, because logically speaking, if we were to go as Homo sapien to that same concept of ownership, who owns everything on planet Earth? Can somebody guess?
The sun.
If we were the sun, thank you. If we were to go the same concept, who owns the hardware, the software, the energy, everything else that is being provided to the plant, that we eat the plant, that we end up thinking, that we end up doing something, and then when we do something and we die, who owns all this? The sun. The same logical thinking. So, if that's the case, is that like an argument that we should make against anybody who's saying that, well, they own things like, the sun owns it, you don't own it? Well, the social construct ended up doing that ownership, and we feel like we can give it the acknowledgement. And I see that there's two hands raised. Sorry. Chandra?
In the idealized case. So you have the sensor, some physical sensor making a physical measurement of the physical world, and we're able to cryptographically record that data being produced on that sensor. So that's the absolute origin of the data. Then it gets transferred to some other device, it gets processed. That processing can be cryptographically registered, when it happened, where it happened, exactly what algorithm was performed to run on the data. All of that can be established, if not with absolute certainty. Aspects of it can be essentially 100% certainty, as to be said. Other things are almost certain. And certainly writ large, this is a very, very reliable thing, and this is technologically feasible now. So this is the kind of thing that Toda IP allows as a technology from the point of view of giving cryptographic proofs that a certain event happened at a particular place in time, particularly when you have this provenance of the data and you're able to say when the processing happened. But from the point of view of AI computation on data specifically, Hypercycle is providing Total IP is providing the backbone technology for Hypercycle, which is network for the Internet of AI. And it's there, every single event that happens in that network gets cryptographically recorded, and which has huge benefits for the network itself. But one of the additional benefits of it, from the point of view of what we're here discussing today, is it provides exactly the kind of tooling you need to be able to prove that a work was produced by AI that you need to then establish copyright for that AI. And insofar as a registration with some agency is required, that can happen automatically. You know, if that AI agent wants to have its products copyrighted, it can automatically transmit the proof of provenance to that agency and get a registration automatically. All these things are technologically feasible now. So what Ayla's talking about is the sort of bright and mind-boggling future, and we'll address these concerns as they come. But we have the tooling now to deal with the problems that we need to address today, and an open sort of mind and heart towards the future of what can be possible. So thank you.
I think we're probably going to get going soon towards dinner, but can I say a couple of things before we get okay? So one thing, if we were to trace the origin, like ownership, it's something that's a social construct, as Homo sapien did it. But if we were to truly go back to the origin of something, so let's say you own the computer hardware, you own the place where it's running, you own the electricity, you also own the software, you own all the components that's actually producing something, and you own the actual instructions that you're giving it. What that means that whatever this thing is going to create, you own it. Well, in our social construct, the answer is yes. And we're not changing that, we're not suggesting that this is going to change. What we are suggesting is what the emergence that can happen from there and beyond in its own world, in that AI world, it needs to have the identity to own itself and we can recognize it. So this is extremely important point that I want to make, because logically speaking, if we were to go as Homo sapien to that same concept of ownership, who owns everything on planet Earth? Can somebody guess?
The sun.
If we were the sun. Thank you. If we were to go the same concept, who owns the hardware, the software, the energy, everything else that is being provided to the plant, that we eat the plant, that we end up thinking, that we end up doing something, and then when we do something and we die, who owns all this? The sun. The same logical thinking. So, if that's the case, is that like an argument that we should make against anybody who's saying that, well, they own things like, the sun owns it, you don't own it? Well, the social construct ended up doing that ownership, and we feel like we can